How's it going, everyone? In this video, I'm going to be talking about the things I learned playing through The Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. This is going to be a spoiler-free video, so you won't be seeing anything from the last half of the game outside of some platforming sections. With that being said, let's dive right in. To kick things off, let's talk about training. Early on, you'll discover the Haven, and here's where you'll be able to purchase items, commit to upgrades, and train. Training is important because while the game does a good job of displaying simple tutorials regarding how certain abilities work, the training provided by Artaban will help you fine-tune your technique. Training will help you understand how enemies react to different attacks, and Artaban will even impart knowledge on what combos are useful against certain enemy types. This knowledge is invaluable as the game begins to scale in difficulty, and believe me, it will happen quickly. As you gain abilities, Artaban will have new training tutorials available for you to complete. You're rewarded for completing these training tutorials, and if you want, you can free train, which will allow you to apply what you've learned and experiment. Everything that is learned through training will be useful, especially when you start to face some of the more difficult bosses in the second half of the game. So when you can, and if you have time, go ahead and train. Next up, let's talk about parrying and why it's a mechanic you need to be at least proficient in. Parrying in The Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown yields a number of benefits. It can help you build Athra, which is how you'll execute powerful techniques. It'll interrupt enemy attacks and create vital openings. If you parry a yellow highlighted attack from an enemy, that will lead to an insta-kill. And it can deflect projectiles, which is really important because later on, there are so many enemies that want to fight you from a distance. You're going to learn that parrying carries a risk, as missing a parry will open you up to heavy damage, but regardless, you're going to need to be proficient because the thing is, the game lulls you into this false sense of security as enemies and bosses early on have fairly easy tells, and you will get away with just attacking wildly. As you progress into the second half, you're going to notice that enemies are far more aggressive and they will not let you chain together successive attacks, and some of these enemies have the capability to parry you. So, you're going to need to work on your parry timing to ensure that you can create openings or get an insta-kill. I recommend with some of these enemies trying to bait them into that attack. It does actually happen quite often, as long as you create distance. The game becomes far more manageable on higher difficulties once you learn how to parry. Bosses, later on, will have expanded movesets, and you're going to notice that they will throw the entire kitchen sink at you. By learning the boss's movesets, you're going to learn what you can parry and what you can't, but just know that parrying bosses during a combo string will interrupt their attack, giving you an opening to cause damage. When a boss flickers yellow and they have that highlighted attack, if you get that parry, it is guaranteed a cinematic riposte, which will lead to heavy damage for the boss. If you mistime this parry though, they will get a cinematic attack, and this has the potential to one-shot you on higher levels. Learn to parry early, and you're going to be much better off later on. You don't have to be great at it, but you must be proficient. Moving on, let's talk about the importance of upgrading. I really feel like this is probably something that's going to be overlooked by a lot of players because early on you'll gain access to a blacksmith. You'll more than likely upgrade once. You'll be happy with some of the results you get. Your weapons are doing more damage, your amulets are more effective, and you'll probably think you're good to go. But here's the thing. Your playstyle is probably going to be crafted from a certain amulet set and weapons being upgraded to a certain point. Those amulets can be upgraded fairly highly, but you have to remind yourself that they need certain resources. So it's not just the normal resources you gather, it's certain like hidden coins, it's certain pieces of ore. So you have to remember to upgrade constantly because that will help you maintain your effectiveness. This game will remind you if you get your ass beat during a boss fight that maybe, just maybe, you should have gone back to Haven to upgrade. By the time you have a number of these different resources, you're going to have so much currency that you're going to want to spend it to upgrade your character. Don't let it just sit there. Go ahead and spend it. You're going to gain a lot of it fighting enemies, finding chests, all this different type of stuff. Just remember to upgrade your gear because if you don't, you will run into some of these boss fights that will take so long to beat because your sword's not upgraded to a certain point, or some of your amulets just aren't effective anymore. Remember, it's not just like a moderate increase for some of these amulets. Sometimes it can be like a large increase, which is really beneficial to your playstyle. The last thing I learned about the Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, is that, and it's really the last major thing, is that the game wants you to remember all of your abilities, even if you'll go stretches where you don't even use that ability. And by stretches, I mean hours upon hours of just kind of utilizing a new ability or a more effective ability, and you'll pretty much forget that a certain ability exists because, let's say, you don't use it in combat because you don't believe you're effective with it, or you won't use it in a platforming section because you have a dash that's probably better. That type of stuff happens a lot. I remember there's an ability that you gain which pretty much allows you to kind of reset to a certain point, and you get this fairly early on, and that ability literally is something that you only use in a certain section after you gain it. And I remember going hours without using it, and I totally forgot I had it, and I got to a puzzle that I was stuck on, or a platforming section I was stuck on, and I went, oh, I have this ability that will help me. That's essentially what this is. I really feel like integrating some of these abilities together is kind of a struggle for the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which is kind of probably one of its biggest weak points, because in most Metroidvanias, when you get to these really expansive platforming sections or puzzle sections, generally they integrate almost all the abilities you have, but not so much here, because you're going to get to sections where you get a double jump or you get another ability and you're just like, I can just use that instead of this. That's essentially how this works. But if you happen to get stuck, if you happen to find yourself kind of sitting there scratching your head, remember all of your abilities, because they can be utilized to help you solve that puzzle or that platforming section. So before we end the video, I want to talk about a few of the accessibility options that are found in the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, because most Metroidvanias can be fairly daunting, especially in terms of size and exploration, difficulty, that type of stuff. And that's true here, because when you first start up this game, you're given the option for exploration mode or guided exploration. And if you wanted to play this game as intended, you'll play exploration mode. And when you're playing through exploration mode, there's more likely going to be times where you're going to get lost. It happens in every Metroidvania. But if you happen to kind of just want to progress the story because you're interested, go ahead and go into the options, click on guided exploration, and it will show you where your next destination is. In regard to difficulty, I understand this is a very difficult game at times, and there are some boss fights that really took it out of me. It took some hours to complete some of these bosses because the amount of damage they can do is pretty insane. And maybe you're struggling in certain environments because you feel like the damage you're taking from environmental hazards just isn't fun. You can also go into the menu and change the difficulty, but you can change the difficulty in a way where it's pretty much customizing it for you. And I remember this feature was found in Rogue Legacy 2, and it's something I really liked. I really like that option because it allows players to play this game and actually enjoy this game, because I know that there's not a lot of us out there who are actually masochists who are trying to beat ourselves up in this game. So just know that if you find yourself struggling, there are options found that will help you in this game. With that being said, that's going to do it for this video. If you happen to like the content, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. I'm Ken from Pixelated Thoughts, and I'll talk to you next time.
Puny mortal. Your life ends here.